Yan na, let's get the ball rolling. This is officially going to be the last live vlog for 2023. And God willing, this vlog will set the tone for 2024 sets of analysis. So we have a couple of things already in the pipelines. Of course, dun sa mga interested or excited. As I promised, I'm looking at doing new things, including giving a semi-lecture series, beginning with an introduction to Orientalism, right? So, what is the Orientalist paradigm? What was the conceptual, the foundations to that? Anong implication ito for modern political and geopolitical analysis? So, it's going to be a 1 hour and a half, almost, I think, 1 hour long lecture or something a little bit shorter than that. So I have been working on a number of lecture series to give a different twist dito sa mga vlogs natin, dito sa YouTube channel natin, Facebook channel natin, and mga others. Because I know, of course, folks come to our podcast and vlogs, for entertainment, for humor. And, I always say, no problem. I never shun humor. I never shun entertainment. Because, as Socrates said, you have to seduce people into truth. Unfortunately, unvarnished facts and truths sometimes are not the most attractive things. And unfortunately, that's why fake news are almost more viral than factual news, no? So what we need to do is always bring an element of humor, an element of kanchawan, an element of bardagulan, especially kung nandito tayo sa Pilipinas, no, in a culture like ours. And guess what? I gave the same advice to a number of leaders in this country, including the late and former President Aquino. I had a conversation with him just before pandemic. We had our own sets of disagreements. But I think one of the things that any Filipino leader or president or thought leader should appreciate is that pagdating sa ating bansa, you have to put a little bit of a spice, into your conversation. You have to put a little bit of humor, no? But never ever compromise your content in terms of, substantive discussions or yung character mo bilang isang tao or intellectual. I've been always uncompromising on that. So I always disagree with two sets of people. One set of people will say, hopeless yan, don't even try, right? All people want to watch is entertainment, I don't know, erotic, kind of the podcasts or conversations, or yung, chismisan, marites and all of that. And then there's another group of people who say, no, 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 you can do it, but you have to, a little bit water it down. I even hear terms like you have to dumb it down. So I disagree with both of those groups. No. So our experiment essentially since last year or so, since we became much more like full blown, all out podcaster with more than 300 podcasts uploaded since last year. My observation is that kaya yan. Hindi siya madali, but thanks to support of people like you, our supporters on different platforms, thanks to the foundations that we built throughout the years, I think there's you can give leg to these kinds of advocacies. So for today, I'm going to talk about three things. Essentially, the three top political developments for me as far as 2023 is concerned. At anong implication ito for politics next year, right? All of these are going to be extremely, extremely important. No. Now, let me be absolutely clear. Para sa akin, una-una, ang pinakamahalaga, the biggest political event of 2023 for me is yung paglaya ni former Senator Leila de Lima. I think that's the biggest political development of 2023 on so many levels. And I'm going to explain it to you guys why. To begin with, of course, this just confirmed what everyone has been saying for quite some time, which is walang basihan yung mga charges ng nakaraan na administration laban sa number one critic of President Rodrigo Duterte. I mean, no offense to some of our journalist friends, no offense to some of our friends who try to build themselves as a David versus the Goliath of Duterte, but the reality is that, when some of our journalist friends of ours were having chummy interviews or debates, or sting debates with Rodrigo Duterte, years before that, Leila de Lima, as the chief of the Commission on Human Rights, was taking the fight to Rodrigo Duterte, including in Davao, including in the city hall in Davao, right? So, former Senator Leila de Lima has a very long track record of fighting for human rights against de facto warlords, or, your classic case of, warlord political dynasties. No? So this is a person who has a long track record of really fighting for her convictions. I can talk about a lot of other things now. So by every metric, Leila de Lima was a chief critic of the former president, his most contentious rival in many ways, at least in terms of standing up to Duterte in the first 6 months to 1 year. Most people, let's be very honest about it, had second thoughts about in, parang wag mo na banggayin ito si Digong dahil napaka-popular niya, 70, 80, 90% approval ratings. In fact, I think close to 90% approval ratings. Yung idea na ito yung political honeymoon niya, let him do what he's supposed to do. But it was DELIMA who really stood up to him. Fair, and well, not so fair, but definitely square, right? And she paid the price for that. She paid the price for that. And no one, as far as the big political personalities in this country are concerned, came close to the level of sacrifice that Leila de Lima had to make in her fight for justice and her fight for truth, no, and human rights in particular. Yes, there was harassment, legal harassment, there were death threats, all sorts of horrible situations. Yun ang hinaharap ng mga ibang critics ng administration. I mean, I can say for myself, the death threats, the attacks, the harassment, how many times we had to shut down our pages, go offline. It became just so crazy throughout the years. But this doesn't compare at all. Doesn't even come close to what Senator Laila De Lima had to go through. And she was almost killed. No, at least we know about one instance. No, when a terrorist inmate held her hostage, and she was almost gone, right? Not to mention, the constant threat of something potentially happening to her while behind bars. And all of this happening even without her facing a proper trial. Judge after judge, they had to cancel the trial. They had to recuse themselves or come up with excuses. So for more than half a decade, Senator De Lima lost her freedom and was facing constant uncertainty, the worst kind of uncertainty. And that's the kind of sacrifice that has no parallels among the top political leaders in this country. Let's just be absolutely honest and clear about that. Now, the other thing that is important with the case of Leila de Lima is this. Nung pinalaya si Leila de Lima, she wasted no time to get back on the saddle. We know that in the case of Leila de Lima, immediately she gave interviews right and left, including with yours truly. Dito sa podcast natin. We know that with Laila de Lima, immediately, she considered getting back into political action, including yung kanyang pagtanggap ng position of spokesman for the Liberal Party, the long-time opposition party and the longest-running opposition party. Party, mainstream party in the Philippines for that matter. And more than that, of course, nakita natin with Senator Laila de Lima, she openly threatening to go after her tormentors, no, including the former president, no. So essentially normalizing the quest for accountability. So may kinalaman na ito sa ICC. May kinalaman na ito sa Franz Castro and other progressive leaders also fighting back and considering legal action against the former president for threats and all sorts of horrible things in the past and the human rights catastrophe that we had in the past. But the other important thing to also keep in mind here is also Senator Laila de Lima potentially inspiring a new generation of political leadership, a new generation of opposition politics, and potentially being the center, no, being the center of a new revitalized opposition. So nakita natin dun sa isang discussion natin earlier this year, we had this picture, no, by Congressman Gilat, which showed Leila de Lima in the center, and then you had de Lima, and then behind you had Franz Castro. So you're already seeing embers of a potential united opposition with Senator Leila de Lima as the fire in the belly, right? As the pivot of this potentially more unified, more full spectrum, and more dynamic opposition. Now, let's be realistic. I think things in 2025 may not look best for the opposition, but I think if the opposition get its act together and put the pieces of the puzzle together, they could be in a very strong position for 2028, and they could be very strong fiscalizer from 2025 to 2028, no? And also make sure na they'll be in a position to make sure na walang mumbo jumbo mangyari after 2025, no? So in that sense, the biggest political development of the year also has very much long-term implications, especially for 2024. And in the moral, emotional sense, of course, I'm more than happy to see former Senator Leila de Lima spending time with her family and loved ones and having the kind of respite, getting the kind of respect and recognition and everything that she deserves after all the sacrifices that she made. Now, let's go to number two. The number two biggest political development is something we have been hinting at quite some time. I have been writing about this potential for years already, as early as 2021. You can check my article on Nikkei Asia about the potential fight between House of Duterte and House of Marcos. So this kind of a Game of Thrones situation is something that I've been looking at for quite some time. But to be honest, that the speed, the velocity, and the viciousness of the conflagration of the unit team has perhaps taken a lot of people off guard. But one reason this was never surprising to a lot of us is because we were following what was happening in the blogosphere. Ayan, may mga followers tayo dyan na alam natin. Alam nila yung pinag-usapan natin. Now, we saw some of the big bloggers, nagbubuljakan na ngayon laban kay Marcos Jr., laban kay First Lady. Yung mga iba dyan na, solid kay Marcos Sr., ngayon galit na galit kay Marcos Jr. Yung iba dyan na pro Duterte, ngayon solidly against the administration. And then we see also a lot of moves by former allies of the former president, former members of PDP Laban, now them aligning with the other side, and with no less than the vice president somehow, being caught off guard, caught in between, no, and yes, also caught off guard. So, yung conflagration of the unit team, I don't think this process is over yet. I think we're going to see more of that as we get closer to 2025 elections. You can use, all-out war, civil war, whatever terminology you want to use there. Obviously, we wish the best for the country. I don't think it's good for the country to be divided. I'm not necessarily a fan of any of these political factions, but division within the country is not good for us, especially as we face a lot of challenges internationally, geopolitically, economically, and so on and so forth. But in a way, this was almost inevitable because what brought the unit team together was convenience, was electoral calculus. And there were a lot of tensions, including when Marcos Jr. Began to choose his top cabinet position and did not give the Department of National Defense position to his running mate as was expected, right? So doon pala nakita natin may mga hidwaan na, may mga fault lines na. Once Vic Rodriguez was gone, once people close to the former administration, including the military, were semi-marginalized, if not more, we saw the embers of something more significant coming. No, but the whole Tambalos episode, the viciousness, not only among bloggers but also the back and forth among politicians, medyo next level yun. But I think more is yet to come next year, and we're about to see also what's going to happen to SMNI, because the SMNI is also kind of being caught off guard. Caught in between, if not also caught off guard here. So lots of proxy wars happening here, and potentially we may go beyond proxy wars here. More back and forth between the chief protagonists here. The former president already is very vocal about his criticism of the incumbent and his successor. So let's see if the current president incumbent is going to go also gloves off mode anytime soon, kung mag-beast mode siya or hindi. Again, we know this person to be very, very conflict avoidant, among others, but at some point you have to draw the line, and at some point your hands is going to be forced. So that's another thing that we have to look at. But this brings us to the third and a very important element, which is yung sitwasyon sa West Philippine Sea. Now, there's a lot of mumbo-jumbo nonsense out there. Yung idea na this whole gaslighting industry of our Makapili Club friends, no? This idea na kasalanan pa ng Pilipinas na binubuli tayo sa West Philippine Sea. I mean, there's nothing more ridiculous than that. The idea of us blaming ourselves for doing the right thing, which is upholding and defending our sovereign rights sa sarili natin bakuran. International law is very clear. Walang basihan yung China's 9-dash line. International law is absolutely clear. Hindi po territory ang Second Thomas Shoal. It's just a low tide elevation, but because it falls within our continental shelf and our exclusive economic zone, it's more or less, an area where we can exercise our exclusive sovereign rights at walang basihan yung mga claims ng China dyan. But more importantly, this is something that people keep on missing. The reason why nag-OA, napaka-OA ang China in terms of the response to us is not only the element of, EDCA, and Taiwan, which I think are important. In fairness, naman to that, and the Philippines Treaty Alliance with the United States, of course, that's a big factor. But I will contend that the big also element here is that na-surprise din ang China sa direksyon ng Marcos Jr. administration. I think nasanay sila dun sa slavish, subservient presidency na meron tayo in the past, and they were expecting that Marcos Jr. more or less continue along the same line, and they thought that with pledge trap and just making empty pledges, they could get the ball rolling in their own favor and get our essentially strategic submission. But none of that is happening. None of that is happening. Now we can have a long discussion about dynamics between Marcos Jr. and the U.S., what's going on there. Maraming mga marites and conspiracy theories there. But the reality here is that the Philippines doing what it was supposed to do under Duterte, and what any decent, self-respecting, patriotic president would do, which is continue to resupply our own mission within sa sarili natin bakuran. And we're talking about, eh, since 1999, andun po yung mga tao natin dyan sa Sierra Madre. So, bakit ang OA ng China ngayon pag nagre-resupply tayo dyan? We have been doing this for more than 20 years. Almost a quarter of century we have been doing that. So, clearly, this is about whiplash. This is about, the violent lashes of a bully, right? Of a surprised beast, for that matter. So, yun po yung tinitingnan natin konteksto ngayon. So, in many ways, the big development of 2023 is not only the Philippines becoming more and more open, no, doon sa kanyang uh, you know, Philippines more openly exposing yung pagbubuli na nangyari dyan sa West Philippine Sea, which I think is something slightly different from the previous administration, also including also the Aquino administration, usage of drones, usage of aggressive transparency, but also of course building up defensive alliances and joint patrols and all of that. So tanggap ko na these are slightly new elements, but these are elements that are commonsensical, right? Now, we have a lot of our friends, our Makapili Club friends, who keep on saying, dapat gayahin natin yung mga ating mga kapitbahay. Tignan mo sila, nakakuha sila ng investments and all of that. Like, let me be absolutely clear about some basic facts here. Okay, first of all, Vietnam has made zero concessions on the West Philippines, on the East Sea or South China Sea issue. They continue to claim the areas that China claims. They continue to push back against what China has been doing. They continue to push for oil and gas exploration by Russian, Indian, foreign companies in areas also claimed by China. So there's zero concession by Vietnam. In fact, the reason why Vietnam is having this relatively decent relationship with China is because China had to accept. Matapang talagang Vietnam. So mag-gera tayo? Hindi. Because China also cannot afford that. Their economy is not doing well. And economically, because Vietnam is so geographically close to China, malapit yung manufacturing base ng China, especially in Pearl River Delta, yung tinatawag na Greater Bay Area, napakalapit sa Vietnam. And Vietnam now also emerging as an alternative global manufacturing hub. So it makes sense for China to have a good relationship with Vietnam, because a lot of Chinese companies can export to the West via Vietnam, which, by the way, has bilateral free trade agreements with the EU, with the United States. It's part of the CPTPP, which is led by Japan and was supposed to be led by the United States. So it makes perfect economic sense for Chinese folks to be invested in Vietnam, because this is where to make money. And China had to accept, in the ubrang Vietnam. So, anong gagawin natin? Huwag na tayo mag-economic deal? Huwag na tayo maging chummy? No. And at the end of the day, they're two communist countries, so they have relatively robust party-to-party relationship. So this has nothing to do with them supposedly, no. Vietnam is still fighting for what they're fighting. So that's fact number one. Fact number two, Malaysia, it's true that under current Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim is sounding very pro-China and all of that, and there's a lot of story behind that. But let's not forget what Mahathir was doing a few years ago, bashing China on pledge trap and all of that. Let's not forget that Malaysia unilaterally deployed the West Capella oil drilling platform to drill oil and gas for Petronas sa South China Sea areas, in areas claimed not only by one communist country, but two communist countries, both Vietnam and China. So there was a three-way scramble happening from late 2019 onwards, but Malaysia did not give up. Tuloy-tuloy yung ginagawa ng Malaysia. And speaking of Singapore, our very good friends in Singapore, yes, it's true that Premier Lee said something about caution and all of that, but let's not forget, Singapore has no direct maritime disputes with China. Singapore has very good economic relationship with China. It's a Chinese majority country also. But importantly, having said that, Singapore has a solid military relationship with the United States and increasingly with other major powers, including United Kingdom, uh, Quad countries. The United States has been permanently positioning its littoral combat ship Jansa Change in Singapore. Behind the scenes, Singapore is buying billions of dollars of American weapon systems, including F-35 fighters, F-35B, which can vertically go up. So let's get some of those basic facts very clear here. So, ano bang mungkahi ng ating mga matatalinong makapili club? Ang mungkahi nila ay maging nice tayo sa rhetoric? Well, I mean, President Marcos Jr. has been very nice to China and often. And what did he get from China in return, right? Kaya nga sabi kailangan natin new paradigm. Ano ba mungkahi ng mga makapili friends natin na wag na tayo mag-resupply sa sarili natin area and let's just allow China to take over? No ASEAN country is doing that. Vietnam is not doing that. Malaysia is not doing that. Indonesia is also not doing that. Indonesia actually does not have direct dispute with China in South China Sea, but because napaka-vague yung claim ng China, napaka-expansive and napaka all over the place, umabot pa sa North na Tuna Sea, so lumaban din ang Indonesia. And yet Indonesia was still able to get huge investments because they drew the line with China and because they're a big market. So this is the problem with the spin doctors, Makapili Club, and some of the let's just call them what they are, useful idiots out there who are spinning this for a hostile power. When in fact, the reality is this: the Philippines can have a good relationship with China when China accepts that the Philippines is not a pushover. China accepts that Duterte is no longer the president, and we're not going to have a Duterte-like president perhaps for quite some time. Constitutional change coming soon. And the other thing we have to keep in mind also here is that yes, why not China also tone down their bullying dyan sa West Philippine Sea and rather focus on economic cooperation with the Philippines. Now, speaking of economic cooperation, actually our trade with China increased even during panahon ni Aquino. Ang problema kasi sa trade natin with China is mas kumikita sila sa atin, right? Mas marami export ng China sa atin kaysa tayo sa China. So actually, there's an imbalance in this trade. So actually, the real challenge is how to make sure we export more to China. But more than that, we have no evidence to suggest that if you're nice to China or subservient to China sa West Philippines and all, they're going to be nice to us in terms of big ticket infrastructure investment. Aside from some beautification projects, some whatever bridge made by Chinese contractors here and there, ano mga big ticket infrastructure projects ang ginawa ng China? Oh, maraming POGO investments, but that's not big ticket infrastructure investment from the Chinese government. Let's be very clear about that. All right. So when you look at all of those things, mga kameta, it looks like the three will all be playing with each other. So all these three elements will be related in one way or another, right? What the real opposition is going to do is going to affect the dynamics of UNITIM, dynasty, dynastic, interdynastic, Marcos versus Duterte dynastic, and then there's also intra dynamic, of course, yung isang sister, wag niyang kalimutan. But it's also going to affect the West Philippine Sea aspect. Because our ability to stand up to China and to fight for our rights, a lot of that will also depend on how unified we are domestically and how we make sure the Makapili Club and all of that will not undermine our national security and create unnecessary fissures and fault lines within countries. So all of these three elements are interrelated. And we have to understand it as a whole package and unit. And that's the thing that we're going to focus on in the coming year. Now, before we end this vlog, thank you so much again sa lahat ng mga sumusuporta sa atin. Actually, I just had a post about, you know, you know, let's just. The thing is, at last year at this point, I was actually very, very anxious, mga kameta, because, you know, the question I had to myself is like, okay, what now? Diba? The question I had to myself was like, what now? And because the idea was, sorry, I just have to. No. I mean, guys, I'm a competitive person. I don't want to waste my time, right? I'll do my best to make sure that we push the country in the right direction and all of that. But if people want to keep on, voting trapos and all into power, etc., you're gonna ask yourself question like, okay, what are we doing here, right? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Am I wasting my time? And then of course, it's not only our politics which is a big problem. It's all oligarchs. It's all of those big companies and conglomerates dominating every aspect of our economy. It's about all of those traditional folks in the intelligentsia and media, I'm not sure if they're really here to, to speak truth to power, or, speak along with power, their own version of truth, which serves them both, So, there were so many things that I was very worried about, and I was trying to find out, what was the best course of action? How can I be of use? And how can I make sure I'm not wasting my time? Because, as you know, mga kameta, I do a lot of things, right? I write on China, I write on geopolitics. I'm familiar with multiple regions of the world. I've written books, academic books on multiple regions of the world. I work with think tanks all around Earth. I've been quoted by and work with, written op-eds for, leading media publications in Asia, Europe, US, what have you, right? So what I was asking myself is like, anong gagawin natin dito? Di ba? Anong petsa na, anong ambag na. So I was very anxious. I was really, really anxious. And I think it's really during that moment of uncertainty where you really have to make that leap of faith. As Kierkegaard puts it, you have to really make that leap of faith. And the idea was, I cannot control everything. I cannot control most things. Um, I'm not 100% sure about how things are going to turn out. Although I was slightly optimistic in general. Um, but there were so many things that frustrated me. There were many people that were extremely disappointing. There were a lot of people that I expected more from. And yeah, I mean, yes, because I mean, hindi naman madali gumawa ng mga vlogs and all of that. It takes away time. It takes away energy, right? Literally 2 days ago, I was recovering from flu and all. After Meta, bumaksak na naman, nagka-fever na ako. So I just realized how energy consuming actually this is. I mean, to you guys, maybe it looks like nakaupo lang ako at nagdadaldal lang tayo. But it's actually very tiring for me. And believe it or not, actually, I'm an introvert. I know. I'm an extroverted introvert, meaning you put me in front of like, I don't know, 10,000 people, no problem. I can talk. You can put me in front of, no. But to be honest, like I'm a loner. Wala akong barkada. Most of the time alone. I'm just reading, I'm just writing, I'm thinking. And try to spend time with family and loved ones. I mean, that's just who I am, no? I mean, I try to be cool and fun if you're around me, but as much as possible. You know what I mean? There's just so I rather be alone with my thoughts and figure out how to help the universe in that sense, right? And to make the most out of my life. So to be honest, it sometimes it got very, very lonely and very, very frustrating because there were some people that I really expected a lot from, and they gave these indications. They gave these indications. They gave these indications. And I have to take care of my sick dad. Yes, yes, Friday. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, my dad is sick. It's just there. And okay, no, no. I mean, just dami akong frustrations talaga last year. Grabe. And the reason I was able to get over those frustrations because it's the love of my family. It's my faith in the Lord. It's because I believe what I was doing is right. And it's really also because of you guys. I know that may mga pinost ako na, like no sponsors, no production team, whatever, it's just passion. But that passion didn't come out of nowhere. It's feeding off on the energy that you guys give. The funny comments you make, the caring and the supportive comments that you share and messages you send. Not the creepy ones. Please lang, guys. I know alam ko love niya ako, but please lang, don't post weird stuff there. Okay? Like I feel uncomfortable. Please, okay? Alright, hindi ako BTS, okay? Don't send me like okay. But like mga decent, dignified comments and messages. I really appreciate that. I appreciate when friends just message me, hey, guess who I'm watching? My favorite show, R&R, or yung mga ganon, di ba? Um, so yeah, I was really disappointed with a lot of people. There were a lot of people that I thought they're progressively minded. I thought they respect what we do, and I thought that they would be more than happy to support something special because you need a certain infrastructure. You need certain economics, no, to make something like this work, right? Because it takes away time, energy, and everything like that. So I was just so frustrated with so many people. And guys, if someone crosses me and I believe they're wrong, I'm gonna call them out. I called out Facebook. I called out TikTok. I called out Philippine Airlines. So hindi ako natatakot. I mean, you could be big, big corporations and I'm gonna call you out. And guess what? In a way, I always win when I call out on big companies, right? Because I'm right, and I know people understand where I'm coming from. So I always make sure if I'm gonna go after you, a big corporation, big company, you're gonna be held accountable for that. And I'm grateful that, of course, there was also receptiveness and openness to the legitimate criticism I raised, right? And of course, the constructive advices that I gave them. Philippine Airlines, mahal na mahal ko kayo. Anyway, but there's so many virtue signaling, pa-woke, corporations, institutions out there, and I try to reach out to them, because I had faith in them. I said, baka naman. And at first, they'll give you all of this, paasa sila sa'yo, pa-send sila sa'yo ng mga proposals. So I ended up wasting. I'm pissed off, really. I'm really, really pissed off because I wasted 10, 20 hours writing proposals here and there, to make sure that, you know, uh, I could have reasonable partnership with different people without undermining my integrity and independence because that's always non-negotiable. And and gago essentially, gago yung nangyari, di ba? No, sorry to say, di ba? I'm sorry, Lord, but so anyway, ako naman, I'm a professional person. All I said is next time, make sure you don't waste my time. Because if you waste my time one more time, the 20, 30 hours, whatever hours I spend on all of these things, I'm going to make you pay a price for that. Okay? Because the 20, 30 hours I could have put into so many other things that would have been 10 times more productive and all of that. But anyway, the warnings were already sent to certain people, so I hope they don't mess around anymore. But so I was really, I don't take things lightly, right? I, because I believe God did not create us in vain. I think God had a mission for all of us, and we have to fulfill this mission and really do our best to fulfill this mission. So when I feel someone is wasting my time, or someone is not taking something seriously enough, or I think people are just pakit and all of that, I'm gonna call that out. All right. You see, we had Gomborza, we had Rizal, we had all these fantastic people more than 100 years ago, and then look at how we ended up. We end up this way because we allowed the trapos and oligarchs and all of this, like this whole culture of mediocrity and everything else to hold us back. So we need to correct that. We need to push back against that. And of course, it's not gonna be easy. And for me, I just felt it's just part of the journey. At least nakakaalaman na. Now I know who is who. And thanks to you guys, I got to also know, that marami dyan sa ating mga kababayan, including a lot of people who do not agree with me 100%, I know, I mean, we have followers who are like pro Duterte, pro Marcos, of course, many of course pro Lenny, many of course may mga pro Isko, may mga pro and I know that they're not there because they're happy with everything I say. I think some of them even came in just to bash me or hate or whatever. But I think eventually everyone who bothered to listen to the cadence, to bother to understand the intentions behind what we're doing, they realize, okay, something else is going on here, right? This is a humble, small, flawed, yes, flawed, but still, uh, well-intentioned effort to introduce a different approach to entertainment and infotainment, right? I know what I'm talking about. I've worked in all big media networks in this country, right? Not only abroad, but I've worked, and I'm still writing for the biggest newspaper in this country, all right? Okay, so I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the state of infotainment and everything in this country. I just realized, if you want to do something really special, something that has not been done before, has not been done for quite some time, it's just unavoidable. It's just unavoidable that you're gonna run into frustrations. You're gonna run into some walls. Uh, you're gonna have moments when you're gonna doubt yourself. You're gonna have moments where you're gonna question yourself. You're gonna have moments where you're wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I wasting my time here? Because I'm not gonna be quote unquote young forever, right? Um, I still want to write a novel at least. One of my goals is to write a novel that would have been Rizal's third novel. As you know, guys, Rizal had a trilogy in mind. So everyone knows Noli. Few have read El Fili, which is fantastic. Really, my favorite, one of my favorite top 10 favorite novels of all time, along with The Idiot and War and Peace and a lot of Russian novels for that matter. I want to do a proper book on why is the Philippines where it is today and kind of like the secret history of the Philippines. And you need energy for that. You need strength for that. You need time for that. You need to have resources for that. No, so I hope folks don't. This is not about being whiny and drama and saying, "Oh, yeah." It's just sometimes you just have to be reasonable and wonder what is the how can I make the best out of what I got, right? And while you're semi young, right, or still energetic, how can I make the most out of that so that I can leave a legacy, right? And lo and behold, what I realized is that this podcast things we're doing, this vlog things we're doing, is also part of the legacy building, right? One of the things I realized is that greatness is not only about writing great novels or great books. That's fantastic. It's important. I've written many books myself. I want to write more. I want to do more. But I realized it's not that one big, book, grand book, and then that's it. It's really about this everyday conversation you're gonna have with folks, right? These everyday disagreements and back and forths and bardagulan. This constant dialogue, this daily dialogue, just like what Socrates had in the Agora. Every day he would go there to the center of town, talk to the aristocrats, talk to I don't know slaves, talk to whoever, right? And it was that daily philosophical interaction and dialogues that gave meaning to his life and what makes Socrates one of the most amazing souls that has ever walked the surface of Earth. Although some will question whether Socrates really lived. Ibang usapan na yun. We can talk about Socrates, Shakespeare, but you get what I'm saying. Um, so what I realized is actually what we're doing, these vlogs and all of that. Yeah, on the surface you can make fun and napaka underproduced, pangit ng quality, yung internet natin malabo. Yeah, many times, yung mga puro mga I mean, all the alam niyo na this, 'di ba? But that's why I felt so relieved, no? Nung nakita ko na kaya natin magta-top 100 sa Spotify. Na nagawa natin top 30 sa Apple Podcasts. And time and again, we were number one sa news and political podcasts. It's really a big deal for me. It's really a big deal for me because it's not about my ego. I'll be honest, I'm not the most humble guy walking around. Yes, at least I have the self awareness. But this is about showing that kaya yan eh. That with limited resources, with limited production. I mean, may konting naman tulong ako here and there with thumbnails or whatever, but you see most of it is really just spontaneous. With shorts, of course, thanks to Paring Anton, but most of it is really raw production, no? And we're not talking about I don't know celebrities, I don't know sex life of people, yung mga barangay love stuff like that. I mean, those are fantastic, of course. But my point is to be able to be still in top 100 in Spotify, top 30 and Apple Podcasts, etc. When you're up against all of these other well-established, well-funded, Uber-produced, entertainment-oriented, erotic even some of them, that I just felt a profound sense of relief na parang, okay, mukhang hindi ako delusional when I thought we can do something special here, right? And again, this is not about hey Darian thinking he's the man who's gonna solve all that. No, no, no. This is about inspiring a new generation. Kaya kung nakita niyo yung sa ibang interviews ko recently, I had two dun sa TV show natin, View from Manila, which, thank God, of course, we were nominated sa Asian Television Network Award. Finalist din tayo dyan, so I'm super thankful to the Lord. I mean, thank God, and God willing, I hope the best because this is also my way of saying thank you to my team and all of that, sa View from Manila and our long conversation and all. Now, going back to this, sorry, na-distract ako. I'm just checking on my dad here. Um, no, I mean, yun nga eh. The idea. So sorry. Yeah, I just remembered. No, so you saw, I'm doing also this podcast with some of our fellow millennials. Yung ba almost Gen Z na yata, di ba? talking about West Philippines Sea and all of that. At this, I had two at these episodes of You from Manila with three younger than me. Definitely, folks in their 20s or early 30s. So I was very proud and happy that we have this generation. I mean, I'm not taking. Let me be absolutely clear. I'm not taking credit for that. What I'm just saying is that I hope the next generation, Gen Z or younger folks, when they can say, there was a guy like Hey Darian, with limited resources, but a lot of, you know, a lot of was kind of able to pull off at least, I don't know, 5 out of 10, and hopefully one day there'll be people who pull off 10 out of 10 or 15 out of 10 or whatever, are gonna do better than. But at least I'm glad we paved the road. We paved the road, and essentially proof of concept tayo na this can be done. This can be done without sponsors, without production, whatever. Now, I'm not ruling out that at some point, when you reach a certain scale, you will need certain level of production and help, etc. Yes, of course, at some point. But at least over the past year or so, we proved that we can make it to top 100 in Spotify, top 30 in Apple Podcasts, and not naman always, but at least more or less number one in news and political podcasts with the very limited resources that we have, right? And with the very sabog, yeah, sometimes sabog, I mean. But that's the thing, eh. Sometimes parang nakakairita yung mga comment, now why don't you go straight to your point? Like, dude, if you want to read, if you want to get my idea exactly on a certain issue, go on Google and type, Hey Darian and Vietnam. You will have my full article, 100% talking about that. This vlog is not supposed to be a substitute for you reading quality materials, including articles by yours truly. All right. So my articles are out there. There are probably 2,000 of them at least out there that are available for free. You can read them, or at least you can have free access, limited access. Okay, so this is a conversation. This is dialogue. Socrates wouldn't go to Agora and say, Mister, I don't know something. I'm gonna have 3 points today. That's not how you do it, right? It's a dialogue. It's a conversation, right? Now, if you want to have uh, essentially treatise on a certain issue, I also have that. But go and read my books. Go and read my articles. But if you're here, this is gonna be a conversation. All right. Anyway, I don't want to be drama. I don't want to be emotional or anything like that. But I just hope you realize, guys, there's a lot of passion, positive passion, but there was also a lot of frustration, anger that has been driving us, but for the good cause, because we know we're doing the right thing here. So, before we end the final vlog of the year, let me just say thank you so much to all of you folks on YouTube, on Facebook. I mean, YouTube has been a revelation. Thank God. I mean, YouTube has been big, no? We're doing very well also in YouTube. Thank you so much. Of course, Facebook, I mean, looks like it's cyclical. So siguro, hopefully, pag malapit na elections ulit, bumalik tayo dun sa mga million views videos and all natin. But thank God sa mga supporters natin sa YouTube and other platforms. There's some sort of momentum here. And we're trying to be more active on TikTok, among others. As you know, I raised already some issues with TikTok. I'll try to raise this with their management and all. Let's see how things go with that, because I want to make sure that we maximize all platforms in the best way possible to get the message out, and more generations, people across different generations listening to the right message, because I think this is what we're doing. And as you know, I'm into collaboration. I'm really, really into collaboration. I don't believe in petty competition. Yeah, I post ranking. I'm number one, this and that. But this is not to. This is not supposed to be disrespect to other people. It's just telling our supporters and all na we're on the right track. No, I'm really for collaboration, because I don't like petty competition. I am for competition, certain levels of rivalry and competition, like Ronaldo versus Messi. I don't know, Brian versus LeBron James. I don't know, Benz versus BMW. Like, yeah, a certain healthy rivalry is always good, and I welcome that, right? Um, but I'm definitely for more collaboration than competition, blah blah blah, and all of that. So thank God that we have friends like Lele Claudio, friends like Ronald Llamas, friends like Kristan, Mark Gamboa, among others who have been collaborating with Mark. Naman, this goes more than 2 years already, but this year quite a revelation with Ronald Llamas, quite a revelation, of course, with Kristan, and of course with Lelo, tuloy-tuloy din yung efforts natin. So thank you so much for that. All right. Before tayo mag-drama, baka nagiging melodramatic na tayo. Let me just go back to this. I'm just making sure meron akong internet. Sorry. Check ko lang kung may internet ako. Now, before we get melodramatic and all, no, we're not gonna get melodramatic. Now, this was myself saying thank you to you guys, right? And you see me for who I am, right? No makeup, no. I mean, okay. I mean, of course, hindi ko na kasalanan kung medyo stylish tayo, but and sometimes a little bit too experimental. Alam ko dami nag-bash sa akin dun sa Tatler Ball last year na ano ako, hindi ako hindi kasi 'di ba may heel socks na hindi nakikita. But anyways, whatever. Mamaya natin pag-usapan yung mga Paris Fashion Week and all of that. But you get what I'm saying. And yeah, I mean, I unlike some, people na nagbubuljakan, I'm not here to spread marites and call people names and say, I have Chanel of 1970s na vintage and all of that. But I hope guys you appreciate yung mga split screen Mekos edition na ginagawa natin. It's just a new experiment we're doing. And anyway, thank you very much, mga amigos. Muchas gracias. It was really, really a great pleasure sharing this year with you guys. And believe me, you guys think you're just a message there. That's crazy. No, no Italiano. So see, I see your comments. I'm responding. I'm taking in all the information and suggestions and all of that. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much again, guys, for all your support and all. Please just continue to do that and support everyone who's doing the right thing in this country because you never know. One day we might get the perfect, and not perfect, but yung mga swak na leaders para sa ating bansa. Hindi lang politically, but in every level of governance and in every field of competence and leadership. Kailangan natin yan. Educational, economic, corporate, media, journalism, government, all of this, right? We need really a new approach to leadership, and you're not gonna get that if we do not have a proper understanding of how societies run in the 21st century and how societies are supposed to be run in the 21st century. And those are the things that we do during in these vlogs and discussions and all. Thank you very much. Wishing everyone happy New Year. Of course, tomorrow is Sunday. It's gonna be you know the day before New Year, and Sunday, as you know, is Sabbath for me. So I always also advise for you folks. I know you can see I'm tired, the eye bags and all of that, but at least I always make sure that I have at least one complete Sabbath day in every sense of the word. And at least on Fridays, digitally speaking, I try to take half a break. So as you can see, I don't make much comments. Yung iba kasi nakascheduled. Or wala akong post almost 1 to 7 p.m. or 1 to 6 p.m. Very limited yung mga posts so usually on Fridays, no? So please also take care of yourself. Try to make sure you have some sort of health and vocation balance, because, and yeah, and my sincere apologies if ever, we said things or we did things, even inadvertently in the past year that may have hurt people's feelings and all of that. No, I always say, whoever you voted for, whatever you have said against me or whatever in the past, as long as you're willing to listen, as long as you're willing to be self-reflective, and in some cases, kung may contrition and there's a will to redemption, I appreciate that. I respect that. And nakita ko marami nang comment minsan sa mga videos natin. Ayaw nga, nung 2016, ganitong binoto ko. Last year, itong binoto ko. Ganyan, ganyan nagsisisi ako. At least there's that level of openness. And at the same time, also aminin natin na no candidate has been perfect. No president has been perfect. All of our presidents have had their shortcomings, some way more than others. So wag rin tayo mag-feeling na dahil yung sinuportan nila palpak lumabas tapos yung sinuporta mo hindi nanalo, don't assume that automatically yung sinuporta mo kung nanalo yun, that person would have been perfect. No, right? Governance is difficult. Politics is always divisive. This is a lot about emotions, unfortunately, more about emotions than reason. So we have to be patient and we have to be compassionate because through patience and compassion, we can push for critical thinking. Thank you very much, everyone. Maraming salamat. Good vibes lang, good vibes lang. Hindi ko alam sinasabi ni Jovelyn dyan. Relax ka lang, Jovelyn. Relax lang. Chill lang. Alright. Eto na. Advance Happy New Year, everyone, and looking forward to greeting you, God willing, inshallah. Happy New Year soon in just over 24 hours, depending on what time zones we are. Español. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Hasta pronto. Okay. Hope to see you guys. Adios. God bless and talk to you soon. Happy New Year.